Hey guys, it's M4J here and welcome back to the M4J Transport here in Cities in Motion 2. Before we get started properly, I'll tell you that what you're about to see on the screen, or what you're currently seeing on the screen, is not what the end result looks like. You'll see why at about the 5-minute mark, because it's the first time the game has crashed on my laptop, which was a big pain in the backside, but I suppose in many ways it was a blessing in disguise, because it allowed me to redesign a lot of the road layouts that I built in City East, or City South East, this technically is. The reason I started over here, originally I was just going to do City West, but I thought I'd better start over here because I built those metro stations a couple of episodes ago, which just are in the middle of nowhere. And I think the real catalyst for it was I noticed a lot of people were walking down the side of the freeway, which was holding up some of the vehicles that were trying to get to and from their depots. And it turned out one of the metro stations actually had its shelter on the freeway, which meant people were leaving the station, walking all the way along the freeway back to civilization. So I put these roads in so that wouldn't be an issue anymore. And boy was this a difficult ordeal, because there was the station that's built in the tunnel, which I thought, oh, I'll just put a road over the top of that. But it's so little ground on top of that tunnel, it made it very, very difficult to actually be able to build a road, particularly as the west side of that tunnel, it's a steep decline. So maybe I should have built a bridge going from there, maybe even to the center of the city, and just have it as one of these massive bridges. There's a road bridge in China that's recently opened. I can't remember exactly where it is in China, but I believe they said it's 34 miles long and it took over 10 years to build, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. Sorry, I've got to stop saying between sentences. But yeah, this is kind of just linking up the dots, essentially. Connecting again. Connecting all the metro stations on this side, and then we do go over to City West, which is where the crash actually happens. So next episode, you will see, there it is again, you will see what this now looks like. City East, I'm moderately happy with. City West, it kind of feels a bit rushed for me, so I might go back and change some of it. But you kind of get to see the idea that I'm working with in City West, in that we haven't built the highway extension over there yet, but when we do, you'll see how it will connect in. Currently it doesn't. I've got like a temporary connection onto the main thoroughfare of City West, but you'll see where the highway will actually join up and sort of merge into pedestrianised streets, as it were. So I went a bit crazy with some of these bridges. You can see this one here. I don't think I replicate this one. I don't think I rebuilt it afterwards. I might have tried to do something a little bit similar, but not exactly the same, because this was a nightmare. A lot of the bridges that you're seeing me build right now were really, really difficult to thread through, and I had to do it sort of 2 or 3 times, maybe even 4 or 5 times, to actually get the result that I wanted, which I don't like doing, even in time lapses, bearing in mind that you guys see the sped up final version. But even in time lapses, I don't like messing around trying to build these things. It's not how I like to work, as it were. So I mean, you can see already houses and schools and stuff are springing up. I'm sure there'll be people that are wondering about the music as well, because I'm testing some new music on the channel this week for this video, and I might even, for all my other series where there's time lapses, start adding this music in as well as the existing music. For those of you who are wondering, this is a small composition I like to call the Planet Coaster official soundtrack. It is absolutely one of the best soundtracks in a video game I've ever heard, considering it's all mostly original music as well. My favourite soundtrack is the Vice City soundtrack, and I think that's the same for a lot of people around my age. But none of that was original. They're all existing songs that were added into a soundtrack meant to represent the 80s. Well, they were all from the late 70s, early 80s, those songs. This is original. It's a completely original soundtrack created by, I think, 2 people, Jim Guthrie and JJ Ipsum. And they are very good musicians if you just listen to this soundtrack, and I really, really like Planet Coaster music. It's one of the reasons why I enjoy playing the game even in my spare time. I don't stream it currently because I had some technical issues, and I got annoyed about the technical issues, but I can never get annoyed with the game. I see a lot of threads on Reddit, people saying, you know, is the game dead, or the devs just taking the mickey now, and I find it so harsh when people say things like that. They clearly don't know anything about video game development to come out and say something like that. Plus, you know, it's a good game. People are so entitled these days and so, you know, so willing to blame something without really considering the pros and cons of how it got to be where it is. Like, Planet Coaster has its limitations, definitely, but you compare it to its predecessors and it's so much better in so many ways that people don't truly appreciate. Alright, anyway, I won't moan about that. I'll talk about this game. So this is where the crash happens. You can see here where I start to build the main road of City West. It's not quite central. I don't think it'll ever be truly central. This is kind of an idea I had. Someone asked me about building an elevated metro, which is kind of what I did with this pre-metro, and then extended it further up to the north with the actual metro. And it gave me the idea for a ground level metro, or ground level rail tracks, with one-way roads either side of it. So it's kind of like an avenue with trams running through the middle, but it's with mainline trains. And this is heavily inspired by Australia, particularly Western Australia. If you go to Perth, there's the Mandurah line that runs between Perth and, I think currently it does go to Mandurah, but there are plans to extend it. And I think to the north, the Joondalup line does the same, where for the first few miles, or kilometres in the case of Australia, first few kilometres out of Perth, it actually runs through the middle of a highway. Both lines do, and their stations are actually built in the middle of the highway. So there's like footbridges that go over the top of the highway. You go over there and you then go down to platform level, and I think there's bus stations built on those bridges as well. It's a very clever system. I'm not sure entirely if... I know there are rail lines that run through the middle of highways in America, but I don't think they're passenger. I think majority of them are freight. Plus, I mean, I've had a lot of people recently ask me to do things based on American systems, and I said kind of last episode why I won't be doing that. Although it does bring me on to a nice comment that I got. I think it was Vince. Actually, let me check rather than just speculate. I think it was... yeah, Vince Gio said, last episode I was talking about bus companies and how my university own a bus company, and I thought, when I first said that, I thought maybe I'm wrong, maybe they just manage it on behalf of someone else, but they do actually own it. I looked it up afterwards, and I asked about, does anyone know of any other transport infrastructure owned by universities, excluding roads, because, you know, universities own the land that the roads are built on. 9 times out of 10 they own the road as well. But yeah, Vince Giro got in touch and said Purdue University in the United States has its own... Oh, it has an aviation section, which my university has as well, actually. You can do... There was a university course. I didn't do it. I did mechanical engineering when I was an engineer, but I had a friend or two that did aviation engineering. Not aerospace, it was specifically called aviation. And as part of the course, they actually had flying lessons, which were... I think the university owns an aircraft. It owns 2, actually, because there's one where you would learn about the insides of an aircraft. It's basically an old Cessna or something that had been stripped. So you could go inside it and have a look at how the engine works and how the cockpit functions and things like that. And I believe they either owned a second plane or they rent one where you actually learn to fly. So Purdue University has its own aviation classes, and they also have their own airport. Yes and no. Yes and no. There is a place in Indiana, Tippecanoe County, which I believe is where Band of Brothers starts, isn't it? Tippecanoe. Oh no, Toccoa is where that is. I've heard of Tippecanoe before, though. I'm trying to think what that might be. But yeah, Purdue University Airport in Indiana. It's actually, it's one of the busiest airports in Indiana. It's the second busiest airport in Indiana. The only one that beats it is Indianapolis International. But, I mean, that sounds impressive, but then in 2010 they only had 1,405 passenger boardings, which is the last number that's listed here. It's also no longer listed as a commercial aviation airport. It's now only general aviation. The last commercial flights were in 2015, I believe. So it's kind of like, I mean, Hatfield, where I live, the university has 2 campuses. They have College Lane, which was the original campus, and then they have one called de Havilland. And de Havilland, for those of you who know, Geoffrey de Havilland was an aircraft designer. He founded and built the de Havilland aircraft factory. Anyone knows of the DC Comet, the world's first jet airliner? That was built here. And the de Havilland campus of the university is actually built on the site of the old aircraft factory. There's a whole business park that's been built around the old aerospace site. And so technically, we don't own, I say we, I don't go to that uni anymore, I've got to stop saying that. It's a very difficult habit to break out of when you've been there for 6 years. But the university doesn't technically own an airport, but it's built on the site of an airport. And to begin with, when the university was a college and I've forgotten the word, technical college I think is the phrase, the aerospace site, the aircraft factory actually helped fund it. So it's kind of, it's not, I'm not saying, oh, it's better than Purdue or anything like that. I think it's interesting that the 2 histories are very similar to one another. But it's interesting to know that there is a university out there that has its own airport, even though it's technically now classed as an airstrip, general aviation. It's still, you know, it's a cool thing to have. You look out the window of your classroom and there's a runway right out there. So yeah, if anyone else knows of any other things like that, I know that there's a, I can't remember where it is now. There's a people mover type system, which was the inspiration for the, I've forgotten what they're called, transport pods, something like that, at Heathrow Terminal 5. That exists and is owned by a university, and I'm trying to, someone will always tell me this, I know, so I'm going to keep it a little bit vague. If you know what I'm talking about, please comment down below and let me know. I think that's pretty cool as well, there's things like that, particularly as it was quite groundbreaking for that to happen, and it's inspired so many other similar systems around the world. That's always good when you're inspiring things around the world. Anyway, let's talk about what's going on the screen again. So here you can see how this one-way road system is starting to develop. There's lots of bridges going over, there's lots of tunnels and all kinds of things linking it all up, and it's all one big one-way system to try and help ease traffic flow around this area. And the core component of all of this is the metro tracks that run through the middle. It gets a little bit difficult as we got into the hills here, and you can see at the end here I just built an avenue currently connecting it up down there. I think that might end up being a permanent fixture, although I might have it be built so that there's a tunnel that also goes and links up to the mainland, because I'm still not, say the mainland, this is the mainland, links up to the North Island, so I'm still not 100% sure where that highway is going to go on the North Island, which is why I've not really gone back to it in a while. I could, in theory, build tunnels underneath and connect it up to this, which could end up being the thing, and we end up having one big circular highway system. But yeah, I think I've pretty much run out of things to talk about. I'm going to check my episode plans to see if there's a conversation topic that I was meant to mention. What are we up to? Episode 34. No, I think that's everything. So, with that in mind, like I said, please do comment down below with any answers to the question of, is there a university that owns transport infrastructure? I'm mainly interested in things like companies, like I said, roads, rail. I mean, rail is cool. I'll accept rail, but roads, you know, lots of universities own roads. That's nothing new, unless it's like a super highway or a, you know, a 26-mile long bridge or whatever. It's nothing revolutionary, so probably don't mention that. But you know, anything to do with any other airports, for example, or anything like that, please do comment down below and let me know. Also, comment down below with ideas for future episodes. Besides that, thank you very much guys for watching. Don't forget to leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and of course if you enjoyed the series, go check out the name suggestions list as well, because we need lots of new names for all the stops that are going to be built over here in City West in the near future. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support. Drop some comments down below as well with feedback on the music, whether you like it, whether you want to see it again, or whether you want me to leave it off the channel. And until next time, I will see you soon.